just a stone. Just a stone, a person that's been graven out of a stone. A billion Muslims, a quarter of a billion Buddhists, 500 million Hindus. These people are lost. You've got family probably that don't know Christ. Maybe you've got co-workers that don't know Christ. You may have neighbors that don't know Christ. They're everywhere. You don't have to go overseas to find lost people. They're everywhere. And that's why God's chosen the church, placed the church, and strengthened the church, and allowed the church to be a witness, so that you and I may be able to tell those individuals about Him, and about His mercy, and about His grace. Then let me say that the Master's majesty is positioned also. Verses number 1, verse number 9. His name projects it. O Lord, he says. O Lord, our Lord. He's talking about Jehovah. His name is acknowledged through all the world, Jehovah God. Jehovah. Billions, as I said, 1 billion Muslims place Allah on the throne of their life. 250 million Buddhists. And on we can go about all these groups who believe that they're serving the true and the living God. But friend, they're not. They're not. They've been blindsided. You know the truth. I know the truth. It's up to us to make sure that they get the truth. And then let me just say a few more things, and that is that our Lord is sweet, gentle, loving, forgiving. And if you feel like that you've done something so bad in your life that you can't trust God, that you can't turn your heart and life over to Him, I want to tell you something. That's coming from Satan. That's not coming from God. That's coming from Satan. And I'm going to tell you, there's nothing that you can do that God can't forgive. Now, that doesn't say just live any way you want to live and don't worry about it. God will just sweep it under the carpet. That's not what I'm saying. Anytime, a Christian or a non-Christian, anytime you commit a sin, in order to break your heart, especially if you're a Christian, it will break your heart or trouble you. But I'm so thankful that 1 strike and you're not out, 2 strikes and you're not out, 3 strikes you're not out. Now that doesn't mean that, listen, don't look up here and say, well, our preacher is a liberal. He believes you can sin all you want to and still go to heaven. That's not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying. But I'll tell you this. I'm thankful as a Christian that if I do sin, and when I sin, that God still forgives me. Amen. That God still forgives. I'm glad He didn't throw me out. Amen. I'm glad He doesn't consider me nothing more than just trash and throw me away. He died at Calvary for my sin and for your sin. Now, we believe that. We accept that. We accept that as doctrine. I understand that. But here's the thing about it that you have to also know, and this is just a simple thing. The death of Jesus Christ is null and void in your life. Doesn't mean a thing unless you accept it. That's right. Your accepting of Christ cannot be done, cannot be performed by your pastor, by any evangelist, by your husband or your wife, the mom or the dad. I can't get saved for my girls. I can't ask God to forgive my girls of their sin and them receive salvation through my prayer. That's not going to happen. They've got to pray their own prayer. That's right. You have to pray your own prayer. But I'm going to tell you something. God loves you. And it doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter what you've done. God can forgive you. God will forgive you. You say, are you sure? I'm as sure as this Bible teaches. And this Bible is infallible. It's inerrant. It's inspired. And God would not, listen, God's not a chicken. God's not a chicken. God's not afraid. If God says you're doomed for eternity, He'll tell you right here in this book. He don't beat around the bush. He tells you how you can be saved, and He tells you what will happen if you refuse the only way of salvation. Right. And that's Jesus Christ. That's right. You say, well, preacher, I've heard people preach like that before, and I've heard people talk like that before. You've heard me talk that way if you've been around here before. But listen, talk's nothing unless you hear it and believe it and accept it. That's the only good it does you. A person could attend church every single service for all their life and die and go to hell. He said, I just don't believe that. Well, you better believe it. I can guarantee you there's multitudes of people who've been in church all their life. I meet people all the time who've been in church all their life, know nothing about God, and cuss like a maniac. You say, well, that doesn't mean anything just because they cuss. Well, it doesn't mean some things, but it does mean one thing. It does mean they have no respect for who God is. It does mean that. And if a person's a Christian, they've got some respect for who God is. They may not understand everything about God. Nobody understands everything about God. If we understood everything about God, then we would be like Him. But we're not like Him. We're just sinners saved by grace. That's all. Well, let me wrap this thing up, because I know that you probably got things that you want to do this evening, but let me just say this, that we've got the greatest God that anyone could ever have. The greatest God. We serve a God that's not a statue somewhere. We serve a God that is not that can't be touched by our hurts and our pains. When we cry, He sees it. When we hurt, He sees it. He understands it. When we lose a loved one, when we lose a friendship, when we have bad things to happen to us in our lives, God sees all those things. He understands those things. And He's ready to minister to us in those things. You say, well, preacher, if God sees all those things, why don't He avoid those things from happening? Why don't He keep those things from happening in our life? Well, I don't know all the answers. I don't know of anybody that does. I know a few preachers that think they know all the answers. But I know this. I know this just very simply. And that is that God knows everything that I'm going to go through in all of my life. And it's a wonderful thing to know that no matter what pathway I have to trod in this world, that He said to me, I'll never leave you, and I'll never forsake you. I've been the pastor of this church for a long time. A long time. I've walked through the graveyard with many of y'all, as you've taken your family and brought that. I've walked back to the car with you, and we left someone that you love to be put down in the grave. But I'm going to tell you something. I've never left a grave with a doubt that one day those individuals will be raised.
Amen. Amen.
Never left it. You say, well, preacher, how can you be sure? Because God promised. I can be sure because God promised. And all those that are buried, one day they'll be resurrected. Some will be resurrected to life eternal. And then some who refuse to know Christ, refuse to surrender their life to Him, they'll be judged. And then they'll be sent away into outer darkness. He said, preacher, you don't believe that. With all my heart I do. With all my heart I believe. That's the reason why I try to be so plain with you. I help you to understand that the greatest need in anyone's life, your life, my life, everybody, is to be born again. Because that's where it all starts. Get us in that right position. I appreciate you being here today. May the Lord bless you. If you've got some questions about being born again, if you've got some questions about any of the theological points that we may have made today, I'll be here for a few minutes. I'll stay with you as long as I need to stay with you to help you understand those things. But I want you to know that I appreciate you being here. Pray, pray, pray. I hope that this stuff gets away soon and we can be back together, shaking hands and hugging necks and doing the things that we love to do and want to do and all of that. But right now, we want to try to be as cautious as we can. I know that there's lots of different opinions about things, but listen, if we use common sense, then I think that that's the key. And so next week, unless something happens like the rapture takes place, hallelujah, we'll be back again next Sunday. And so we'll see you then. May the Lord bless you. Have a great day.